Now, more than ever, it takes guts to live for God. On this podcast, we're talking to leaders, coaches, politicians, and industry influencers about what it takes to live the God kind of life. You're listening to the It Takes Guts podcast with Bill Scheer.
But if you're leading and you're too afraid to make a mistake, I tell my kids that wrestle, and in my family, you wrestle and like it or wrestle and don't like it, so choose your attitude. I tell people that if you're too afraid to lose, you'll never be bold enough to win.
Right.
And in leading a church or being in politics, you're under a microscope all the time. And honestly, it can be debilitating at some point. It can actually get to you. And I don't know if you've dealt with that, but I did. I had to learn how to breathe.
Yeah, vulnerability. Let me tell you something. You don't like grow out of it.
Right.
Like, I'm telling you, this week I've got two decisions where they're probably 50-50 calls. One of them, I'm like, wait, this could lock me up. I've got to be free to make a decision.
Right.
And it's a good decision if I say yes. It's a good decision if I say no. So the point is, I usually land on the yes side of those decisions.
Right. Well, that's where I start. I don't start with no. I don't start with trying to figure out how do I get to no to eliminate. I start with yes. How do I get there? And then I start every morning almost the same way. I say, Lord, open the doors you want me to go through. Shut the doors that you don't. Give me the wisdom and the strength to know which one is which.
Which is what he promises he'll do.
Right. And give me the endurance to not leave one stone unturned.
Yeah.
Because when you walk through the door, it's not always clear.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to go through it, but it's still scary. And so that comfortable part, as a church, you're not called to be comfortable. You're called to push people. Call it for what it is. And in politics, you don't want to be to the extremes of one way or the next, but you can't be afraid to say the way it is. You can't be afraid to take that position that is against the norm, but you have the knowledge because you've been informed of what the right decision is. And in politics, they'll warn you against it because you're going to be chastised, you're going to be judged,
right?
And everybody's got an opinion about it. But the great thing about me in politics is that this isn't my livelihood, and nor is it my career. This is something I get to do because I felt like the Lord was leading me down that road. And when it's over, man. That'd be a great day. I'm almost a hermit by nature, anyways. And you know, while you're sitting there talking, a thought came to my mind because you're talking about as a pastor. You know, you're called to teach. I mean, that you're called to speak the word, teach the word, shepherd individuals. I am not called to pastor. I tell people all the time, I speak, but I do not preach. And it's honestly the calling and the obligation that's on pastors' lives, be it what church or what level it is. I'm in D.C. all the time, and I see pastors, or I see churches that have given completely, and I'm not trying to get political here in your podcast, but give completely to the world, to the woke movement.
Right.
Where they're not preaching the word, they're making people feel good. That is scary because the word also talks about that. But I just want to put people why the calling is so important for you to preach and preach correctly, because Joseph Stalin, everybody knows who Joseph Stalin is.
Yeah.
Joseph Stalin, and I'm paraphrasing it, but I'm pretty close to the quote here, said that education is a weapon and can be used depending on whose hands it's at and whose it's aimed at. So indoctrinating someone because of indoctrination that the communists that want to be rulers over you and dictate what you're doing uses education to shape and mold your mind. As he said, it's a weapon that can be used depending on who it's aimed at. And for you as a pastor, you have people that are sitting underneath you that are there because they're hungry for the word, because the world has deceived them or moved them, and they're wanting something. They go there not because they were ordered. They go there because they're seeking something. And the way you preach the word is just bring it. And you unapologetic, just bring it. Mm-hmm. And that's what people need. And for people that are walking around it, I feel sorry for them because it's honestly, it's dangerous. They have a calling on their life to speak the word, to educate the individuals, to listen from people like yourself who spent 20,000 hours in the Word reading the Bible is amazing. we should absorb that. We should want that. And you shouldn't speak it any other way, and neither should any other pastor. And when they go down the wrong path, what is it? Woe to them. Politics isn't my world. I never ran for anything in school except from the police a few times because I drove fast and I fought a lot. But I never ran from anything. I ran for anything, and so politics wasn't my world at all. But I have a saying in my family that you're never going to change anything you're willing to tolerate.
Right.
I don't want to be that person griping about the same issue 5 years from now and didn't do anything about it. In fact, don't talk to me about something unless you're willing to get involved in it. Just don't. Don't waste my time. Because if all you're doing is venting and you care, you act like you care, then you'll do something. If all you're doing is venting, then all you're doing is just occupying air. You really don't care enough. And I got fed up with what was happening in one of my companies, an environmental company that was operating literally all over the place, and it was shut down basically in 1 week because of the EPA. And that's what drove me to politics. My first political event I went to, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't own a suit. I didn't have a tie. I don't even know if I had a pair of slacks, to be honest with you. But I just knew that I wasn't okay with doing nothing. And when I got to D.C., I can't tell you how uncomfortable I was. I mean, I'm working with guys that's got degrees from Yale and Stanford and Princeton and all these Ivy League schools. And I have a degree from OSU IT in construction management. I felt overwhelmed, and I sat, and one time I was on the steps and I started praying, and I was like, Lord, why? Why would you put me in this position? I'm not going to say hate it because I hate using the word hate, but I'm out of my league. And I just felt this peace come over me and just like, listen, I didn't call you to be one of those guys. Do you?
Yeah.
Just be you. And I thought, okay, just be me. And after that, I just went to making relationships. Just let's get to work. Let's make relationships. I'll use you for your expertise. And I've got experience that you never have because you never fired anybody or signed a paycheck. And I have. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let's go on a trip with the family. And every morning this thing had a pier. We're at a house and it had a pier going out there in this lagoon. And we'd get out there and we'd do our devotion. We were there for, I have never taken an 8-day vacation ever in my life. And we did full 8 days. I told my office, I said, don't you call me unless it's emergency. I shut my phone off and gave them the phone at the house and said, let's just call me then. Our plan was to find out if we're in politics or not. And it's early one morning. We're seeing the sunrise. I get up early. She hates that, but I get up early. And I'm reading, and I don't even know what I'm reading in the Bible. I just don't. But I have a hard time telling people I love them. I had a hard time telling people I love them. The only people I ever told up until this point I loved them was my kids, my wife, and my parents. That's it. I thought when people say they love you, it's like, you don't know me to love me, totally different. But we're praying, and the Lord just started really dealing with Christy and I. I always say speaking to us, but I've never heard his voice. I just get stirred inside. And he got to put a phrase in my heart, love the people, love the call. And I was like, what? And Christy looked at me and she says, and almost at the exact time she says, we've missed it. We haven't enjoyed this. We haven't enjoyed the Lord's calling. We haven't truly looked at this as an opportunity to help people. And that's what she said. As the Lord has put something in my heart, love the people, love the call. And I looked at her and I started tearing up, and she started tearing up, and I looked at her and I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to do this again, aren't we? Because I was having to make a decision if I was going to run for office again. And ever since then, there's very seldom a day that wakes up that I don't say, love the people, love the call. And if I speak to people, I tell them I love you. I tell you I love you.
Yeah.
It changed my perspective. And sometimes when you're going through something, you need to change your perspective and know where you're at is where the Lord wants you to be. And if you don't know where the Lord is, then you need to spend some time. Maybe you're not right where the Lord wants you to be. That doesn't mean you quit.
Right.
Because the Lord has never told me to quit something that he didn't call me into something else. I mean, he was leading me obviously into something else.
Always next steps.
Yes. But if you know that you're where the Lord wants you to be, that's all you need. You can find all the confidence in the world. I can go through anything. I don't care what it is. I don't care if I'm in Afghanistan. I don't care if I'm in Tajikistan I don't care if I'm in South America. I don't care if I'm in the comfort of my home. No matter what's going on around me, if I know where the Lord wants me to be, I'm good. I can have the greatest attitude ever. I'm just, let's go. And learn to embrace the suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay.